So good afternoon, sir. Thanks a lot
Good
for coming
afternoon,
online.
Srinivas.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks a lot.
very nice of you to have invited me for this.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks a lot for coming online. I think what we are doing is we have been having a YouTube channel, but we've not been using it so much. Now we are trying to sort of relaunch the YouTube channel. And then in manufacturing, my observation had been that people learn from the experiences of others, and then something which is told to them by word of mouth much faster than even if they attend some training programs and all. They learn from experiences of others much faster. So I thought somebody senior like you with your rich experience, if you share some of your experiences, I think people can learn from that. That's the reason I'm
Sure.
So now I know you, Balu sir. I think I know that you are a finance person, and then but I also know saying that you have been in operations for the last at least 1 decade. Now, how this happened, sir? How you have come into operations?
It's an interesting story, I would say. Finance has been my profession, but production and sort of execution is a very sophisticated word. Production has always fascinated me. Even at the earliest stage of my career, when I used to have time, I used to just walk into the shop floor and be observing things. In fact, one of my earliest employment was in a very big organization, employing about 1,500 people, working 24/7. So it will always be buzzing with activities. So whenever I get time, I used to just walk into the shop floor and be observing. Production always fascinated me. I don't know whether it is my bent of mind or something. And having been in finance, you have always been exposed to the top level teams and meetings, reviews, and where contributions to the production's suggestions and questions used to be exchanged in those meetings. So some of production has been fascinating me right from the beginning. And so it so happened that the opportunity came for me to switch over to execution as a full-time assignment. I grabbed it.
Excellent. Now, just for understanding the current context, can you just share something about your current operation? What's the product and what sort of manufacturing? So that we can relate it to better.
Yeah, sure. See, I am working in a group which specializes in manufacture of bevel gears. For the benefit of the viewers, I'm assuming that I can give a sort of an introduction, as if most of the people may not be fully conversant with what bevel gears is about. Gears is something which is fundamental to movement. So long as there is movement, gears are going to be there. In that, there are different types of gears. To name a few: spur, helical, bevel, hypoid, all those things and all. In that, the bevel gears is something what they call as a pinnacle of engineering. Especially, there are two types of bevel gears. So one is called straight bevel gear, another is called spiral bevel gear. That spiral bevel gear is something which is requiring high engineering skills. So our MD foresaw the value of bevel gears 40 years back. So he made it a point to specialize in bevel gear manufacturing, and he has cut a niche for himself. This industry, the company, the group in which I am working, has earned a name for itself in the bevel gear manufacturing. In fact, this facility which we are having is one of the very few. The bevel gears have varied applications. We are focusing on it has application in the auto industry as well, but we made it a point that we are not going to be in the volume area. We are going to be in the niche area only. So that has stood us in good stead. We have earned a name for ourselves. Our facility is one of the unique ones in the whole of South Asia. It has certain capabilities to manufacture bevel gears from of 5 mm to 1800 mm.
Wow.
So heavy industries, steel industries, robotics, aerospace. Okay. So all the industries require, we cater to all these industries, to construction industry in a big way, infrastructure industry in a big way, steel. So we specialize in manufacture of bevel gears. That is what my present industry is all about.
Wonderful. So when you have taken over 10 years back, sir, when you started up the operation, what were the challenges on the table? What did you start with? What are the challenges that you started with?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I will give you a brief intro about how our manufacturing system works. This is a sort of a job order type of a production system. Okay. You will be surprised to know concurrently about 60 to 70 projects will be running. So each of the product, generically they are bevel gears, but one set of gears which is supplied to one customer cannot be supplied to another. Each of them is unique. So concurrently about 60-70 projects will be running. So when I took over, the main challenge was long lead time. Projects used to be taking very long lead time. Our OTD was very, very poor, and fortunately we are one of the very few who can supply this type of gears. So we enjoyed a sort of a monopolistic situation. So customers were a bit tolerant towards our delays in supplies.
Okay.
So the main challenge which we were facing was low throughput and long lead time, poor OTD record. Naturally, the capacity utilization was also low. That's how those were the challenges which were there when I took over.
And I understand that you are using the TOC concept, the theory of constraint concepts.
Yeah.
So can you just, for the benefit of me as well as my users, can you just explain some concepts very briefly?
Yeah, that's a very interesting opening, because the underlying approach to my execution strategy is TOC. TOC, as most of us could be knowing, is theory of constraints that was introduced by Dr. Eliyahu M. Goldratt, I believe. So he an Israelite, an atomic area specialist, physicist. Okay, he entered into production area and he came out with some interesting observations in the production systems. He in 1984 published a book called The Goal. I don't know how many of our viewers could be aware of it. Somewhere in the early 90s, I was suggested that this book is something very good, and I should read it and understand what it is. I read it, but I couldn't understand how it is to be implemented. It was so easy to understand, but the thing is, how do we apply was a question, especially in the industry in which it was not a continuous processing industry, in a job order industry, more of a project-oriented industry. Even my earlier company, we had introduced this TOC. In fact, that is where I learned what it was. That earlier company was they also had the same problem. They also had the same situation where the projects were getting very delayed, longer lead times were there. So I came across a consultancy who were helping in implementing TOC. So I suggested, why don't we try, and we tried them. Thank God that I had the opportunity to introduce that TOC in that company. Since I introduced and I was showing a lot of interest in this, I was heading a PPC major. Mainly, I was heading production planning and control in that company. So I was put in charge of implementing this TOC. So I had the best of both the worlds. I learned something which I wanted to learn, And I was also given the practical example. So when I implemented it, I understood how to implement it. Theory of constraints, as it is self-explanatory to a certain extent, is about constraints in the system. Constraints in the system. So how do you handle constraints is the way in which the whole thing is structured. Okay. Theory of constraints, for the benefit of our viewers, if I put it very simply, the usual example being given out by Dr. Eliyahu is you think of it as a chain having linked segments. Okay, what is the strength of the chain? The strength of the chain is the strength of the weakest link. So in any system, production system, there will be one weak link that constrains the whole production system. If you are able to manage that link better, if you are able to optimize that better, if you are able to safeguard that better, then your whole system is going to be good. More emphasis is on the throughput. Most of the production companies have independent systems, good, but the thing is how they work together is what is more important. So Dr. Eliyahu gave another example, which is that it is like a relay race. Every system should be ready. As soon as the baton is handed over, it has to start running. That type of a principle. I personally appreciate another example, which is the production system is a system of various pipes, okay, continuous segments of pipes joined together. So if the water has to flow through, if one of the pipes has clogging, if it is letting in only a certain volume of water, the throughput is going to be limited. This example is what I usually give to the people to whom I try to explain. So how do you manage that block? How do you manage that clogged pipeline is what is the constraint management. So that's how I would put it.
Right.
That helped.
Yeah, I think
I don't know whether I have addressed your point.
Yes. I think I can understand that what you're saying is while there can be many problems in a company, there will be something which is sort of impeding the progress of the production. One constraint, one main constraint. So you're saying by addressing that constraint, perhaps you can get the maximum output and then a quick improvement.
Yeah, more importantly, the emphasis is on the throughput. If you think about production as from the point of view of throughput, then your individual machine efficiency is not important. The examples which come across is that you may utilize one machine at 95% efficiency, but in downstream, one of the machine through which this 95% efficiency has to pass through, and if that is going to be giving only 65% or 50% efficiency, then your 95% makes no sense.
Absolutely.
You will be only piling up the working capital, while you will be only piling up the inventory. So his emphasis is on throughput, and the techniques which he suggests are very, very. Without going into too many of the details, the ones which I am very, very emphatic about is about kit. That thing is, work should not stop for want of what is required. So keep everything. I usually give the example of our mothers. They don't start cooking unless they keep everything ready. After putting the stove on, they are not trying to cut the vegetables. So keep the kit ready and start the production system. Another is buffer management. So these are very, very interesting lessons that I learned and helped. Yeah.
So these theory of constraint principles, sir, how did you use them in these operations? And then, what type of process you followed?
Yeah. One of the important things when you implement this theory of constraint, especially in a job order basis industry or a project type of an industry, is each project is of different dimension. You see, they are not of the equal size, they are not of the same product. So it is very, very important to figure out which is the constraint. That's an exercise by itself. That's an exercise by itself. In our present company as well as in the previous one, we first identified which is the real constraint, because it will be there will be a lot of false signals. Lot of when you go about implementing POC, everybody will be saying that, sir, subcontractor is the problem, sir, this machine is the problem, that machine is the problem. No, usually one of the guidelines which I use is see where is the highest value is getting created in your value chain. Is that working at the optimal? Is it able to take the inputs which is coming into that? If it is able to do that, then that's good. Then constraint is elsewhere, in which case it's a simpler problem. If your highest value creation machine or process is the constraint, then that becomes the very critical factor. Okay. So first my step was to identify which was the constraint. And the other thing is that this kit principle, that thing is whatever is required before starting a job has to be kept ready. Right. Usually what happened, people will be scrambling for certain things. They will be scrambling for toolings, they will be scrambling for drawings, they will be scrambling for certain items which has to come for the startup. No, first thing is the kit has to be ready. We have set some parameters. I have outlined that before a project is started, there is a checklist. These things have to be ready. Otherwise, please don't take.
Correct.
In my earlier company, the problem was we used to have so many projects lying in different stages. I used to give the example of supposing if there is a highway, there is a car which is going, it is stopping at some distance for want of petrol. Another is stopping for want of one tire. Another is stopping for want of some other mechanical things. What happens? The highway is getting clogged. Okay. So if you start the car, it has to pass through. Make sure that it is. So that is when the high throughput can come. So my first approach was to identify the constraint process. Second, keep the kit ready. Start the work only if the kit is ready. And then how do you manage the buffer? Okay. So when you are planning the production plan, when you are planning the delivery commitment, you cannot be always very, very optimistic. There is bound to be some delays happening somewhere. So plan tight, but give the buffer and see how the buffer is getting eaten into and take the action accordingly. So this is the broad approach which I would adopt, which I adopted in implementing POC. Yeah.
Wonderful, sir. I think you would have had many people working along with you in this. So how did you take up the education of your team? While the concept is very clear with you, but how did you pass it on to your team, sir?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As you mentioned some time back, first of all, the top management has to be convinced about this approach. It is going to be different from what people are used to doing. One of the thing is, without naming any particular company, in one of the companies, the approach was, sir, this was a photo finish. We just fire fought and finished it. It used to be sort of taken as a glory. I said, first, please stop this. It is not something creditable to say that we photo finished this job, we finished that project and met the customer this one. If you are consistently doing this type of firefighting, which means there is no system in you. So when I said that earlier, the management used to be very, very appreciative of those persons who come and say that we just in time we finished, I did that, I did this, all those things and all used to be. Maybe it was not gloating, maybe it was their mindset that something I raced against time, I put in extra hours, I chased this guy, that guy, I got it done. Maybe it was all done in the right spirit, but the thing is, it was not good for the company. If firefighting is... So first I had to convince the top management that this is not correct. I told three things are very important as measurables. First, how is your OTD? Okay. Second, how is your OEE?
Okay.
I am not giving too many parameters to check or something like that. And the data, there was a lot of resistance for the data. People have their own turfs to protect, you see. So sharing of the data was not very forthcoming. So my first job was to first convert to the top management's line of thinking that what we have been doing requires some change. So once that part was over, once the top management was convinced, all the team members of the top management were convinced that what we have to do, we have to change, then it was easier for me to educate the lower level persons.
Okay.
So next level was the second level whom I had to sort of orient towards this. Yeah.
Okay. So was it a formal training? Did you use some formal training, or it was a working on the shop floor along with you?
Working on the shop floor. Most importantly, two things which I insisted on right from the beginning is the review meetings.
Okay.
Review meetings, it was a very erratic earlier, and there used to be blame games. You know what happens in meetings. So I am never at fault. If there is something wrong, it is due to X, Y, Z, this type of thing. So when all the people are put together in the review meeting, one cannot bluff about the another, you see. Second thing is that there is nothing called a subjective opinion. The data has to speak for itself. So first thing I organized is regular review meetings for the supervisory level people. Then at the top level, regular review meetings. So on as it goes, there usually the pinpricks come up, all these things. But once people understand that old way of doing things is not going to work, and when the top management is solidly behind this initiative to change our style of working, then pieces started falling in their places.
Okay.
So it was more of not more of any formal training, more as doing and training, that type of.
Yeah, actually that works very well, because in a manufacturing person especially, when he is shown what is the right way of doing right on the shop floor, and then when he looks at the result, he learns very fast. Fast.
True.
So I think your approach was absolutely a very effective one. Now, I think this has been going on for about 10 years, sir, now.
10, 15.
How did this initiative morph itself? I mean, you would have started with something, and then how did it change over a period of time?
That's a very interesting question. Initially, I had to be spending a lot of time in disciplining people. Okay, so I had to start at a very rudimentary level. It is I couldn't go scale up too fast. Okay, so more of regular coaching, pointing out, look, you say that you are very efficient, but this it is getting stuck here. So we are not addressing the constraints. So how do we make sure that in our the generation, what we call in the industry terminology, generation of the gears is the constraint. Okay, how those machines are being maintained, how the downtime is getting reduced, how the rejections are getting, what is your OEE, why there is absenteeism. So gradually, when we are tightening all these standards over a period of time, it has come to the expected level. Initially, I couldn't throw in all these things together. So gradually, people were brought into. So one of the parameters which is set right from the beginning is the monthly target of our billing. See, initially we used to take pride in this project was completed, that project was completed, and month-to-month billing variations were so high. So first I focused on monthly billing targets. How close are we? Are we consistently able to sustain our new momentum? So everybody was initially focused only on the billing figure. Okay, this is what we targeted, this is where we achieved.
Okay.
Then gradually it went on to improving the area-wise performance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think it's a long. It's a long period over which you have been driving this initiative, sir. I'm sure there would have been some wonderful results that would have come along during this period. Can you share something about the improvements that happened during this time?
Oh yeah, that's very. It brings to a point. Let me recall one very ample case where the results were very dramatic. Say. One of our customers overseas, we export about 60% of our production to all the hard currency areas. One of our customers regularly buys parts. For his for this particular customer, we manufacture about 258 types of gears.
My goodness.
Okay. So you can understand, and their order size is not always at optimum level. So many orders are suboptimal. So the on-time delivery was very poor. It was to the extent of about 30%, if not lesser than that, when I took over.
Okay.
So initially, it so happened that this is a project which was taken up first for implementation of my approach. And within a period of about 3 months, the OTD came to about 98-99%. The people were stunned. You will be surprised. Earlier, there were about 5 people who were handling this project, which resulted in, in spite of 5 people contributing, the OTD was hardly 30%.
Okay.
Apart from me, there was only one person who was handling this project after I took over, and with all those without all those 5 people, just with one person on the shop floor and implementing this system, the OTD rose to 98%, 98, 99 even it touched. The customer was very happy, and it in fact instilled the confidence of the top management in this approach. In fact, they started citing, sir, what you did in this, why don't we do in this, why don't we do in that? So that was dramatic, and the throughput increased, the turnover increased substantially. I don't want to get into the numbers, but I can say that it improved by about 5 times over a period of this 10-year period. And I would say that not all of it is due to the new approach, but at least 3 times it improved because of the new approach, and 2 because of the change in the product mix. I advised dropping certain product mix and taking up certain mix. And by God's grace, the market was also very helpful. Certain products which we have been developing clicked, and orders came the way. But definitely this approach increased the throughput, increased the turnover and the bottom line of the company to a substantial extent.
Wonderful. I think the successful stories like this actually are very invaluable. I think people can learn a lot from these stories, and I'm sure. I think this is also one such case where I think the improvement is so big that it sort of the total team, including the management, I think their confidence will rise in the whole system. So now during this period, sir, you've been in the industry for a very long time, and the last decade now you have come into the operations now, and you've been in finance for a very long time. How did it help, the finance background? I mean, did it help you in the operations, and what may be the difference?
Very much. As you know, the finance people are the numbers people. You know, I'm a number guy basically. Okay, I mean, to call it a bit derisively, bean counter, they say. Okay, there is a big definition of accountants where they say that accountants know the cost of everything but the value of nothing. Okay, so we are bean counters who count. See, it so happened that I was always interested. As I opened our meeting, I was always interested in the production system. That fascinated me. And being a numbers person and having been at the senior level, I had that business entrepreneurial view of the business as a whole. And finance person always has that how the numbers speak. You may be making some excellent product. You may be making even gold as your product line, but unless the numbers are shown, it makes no sense. That's what I usually tell our people also. You may be making gold ornaments, but if there is no buyer, that means no sense. It makes no sense. So business as a whole, that outlook was coming to me from the finance point of view, and how numbers mean. In fact, I would say that even the people in the production line, people in the execution line should have finance, some exposure. This finance for non-finance executives is a very important thing. Even after so many years, I find that the top management, most of the companies I have worked with are first generation entrepreneurs. They are technocrats turned entrepreneurs. They are mostly self-made people. My earliest, this one, as I told, it was a very large organization. There the systems were very good, even though that was 3-4 decades back. They had an excellent reporting system, that helped me when I was interacting with smaller organizations. Comparatively, there is nothing that is good or this is not good. Not like that. So that I was able to sort of convey to the organizations, where I found in that organization where people were more financially savvy, even though they were technical people, that is not prevalent mostly in MSMEs, most of which are first generation entrepreneurs. So I feel rather than a finance person having a production background, it is very important that the production people should have some financial exposure. So for me to migrate into production was comparatively easy, since I looked at it from the business point of view, and I was able to give the input as to how the ultimately financial performance is what is measuring the business performance.
Absolutely. I totally.
That my contribution from that professional experience actually was helping in this portfolio as well.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Now this long career and then wonderful experience in the operations in the last 1.5 decade. Now, would you like to give a few learnings for the benefit of the viewers as to some do's and don'ts, some your own personal learnings in your career?
Why not? As you rightly said, the experience teaches many things. See, many of the things which we learn are from our mistakes. So whatever I have learned is what missteps some companies have made, what learnings have come out of that to those companies as well as to me on seeing that happening. Some of the mistakes for which I was also one of the parties. These mistakes have taught me so many things. What I usually tell people is, business is about wealth creation. If you want a single measure for business, it is return on investment. So that unfortunately, most people on the entrepreneur side are also not seeing it in the right way that they should be seeing. Working capital management is not being given importance to. Lead time is not being given importance to. So these are the pitfalls I believe the entrepreneur should not make. That's the reason I said that entrepreneurs should have some sort of a financial training. I would strongly urge all the people in the production line or in the execution line to have some sort of a grounding, some sort of an exposure, some sort of a training in the financial numbers. They should be able to see that how all that we do is translating into money, especially it is not bottom line I am talking about, it is about return on investment.
Right.
So I have only very few parameters for monitoring. One is the return on investment. People, I don't know how many people are still doing monthly P&L. And I am basically a cost accountant. Now they call it as cost and management accountant. So the value of costing, it has different connotations for different people. When I go to some companies, they say that this person is the one who is doing costing. Okay, let me look at your costing, those things. When I look at it, they give some arbitrary overheads, they give some arbitrary machine hour rates that they do, and this is the profit margin I should be getting. People have a problem in understanding what is marginal costing. In fact, my experience in for all this 40 years plus is that the most important function in a business is marketing. I'm a finance person. I've been closely associated with operations. I don't say that the operation is the most important one.
Right.
Marketing.
Right.
That is where the profit is made.
Right.
Rest of the functions either maximize the profit or diminish the profit. That's all. So marketing, how do you price your product is very important.
Right.
Understand the costing, understand marginal costing. To make people understand contribution was difficult for me initially. Luckily, the younger generation, the second generation which has taken over, they immediately grasped what I was saying and say that, okay, we understand, okay, we will take this order, we will not take that order. So pricing is something which all the businesses have to give a lot of importance to. How do you price your product or sales? Measure your monthly P&L, okay? Manage your inventory very well. Manage your working capital. Measure your return on investment.
Okay.
And what I usually said earlier is about your OTD, your OE.
Correct.
And if I can add something, your NCs. If you are able to monitor your NCs properly, if you are able to take learnings out of it and reduce NCs over a period of time, recurring NCs at least.
Right.
I think that will help the businesses.
Right. Wonderful, sir. I think you gave a wide spectrum of learnings, and then I think the way you have taken up the challenge and then addressed it with some specific system. It is not solving it somehow, but I think you have taken the help of a scientific methodology and then improved it and then shown the result, which is most important because the managements as well as the teams get belief in these scientific systems. And this is something which very much required for Indian manufacturing, because many times we believe in doing it somehow. I think the jugaad is the way people manage, but I think using scientific systems is something which is very important. And then what you've done is very valuable for that company, as well as an experience which is very valuable for everyone who is going to watch this video. Thanks a lot for coming online, sir.
Thanks, Srinivas. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy that I could share my whatever I learned over this experience, the period of experience with the viewers. I'm very happy about it, and thank you for the same.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.